All right.
Cool. All right. What's your name and where do you live and where do you like to ski?
I am Jessica Starr. I live in Southern or Orange County, California, Southern California, and I love to ski really all over the place. But I'm lucky to have my home mountain now is Mammoth.
Mhm. So you've been on a couple of retreats. If you can think back to the first one, I'm kind of curious to know what your thoughts were about like joining a women's trip solo, not knowing anyone, and like what your feelings were towards an experience like that.
Yeah, it was interesting because I love alpine ski racing, and I really wanted to go to the Sun Valley, the FIS, like the World Cup finals that they were having in Sun Valley in 2025. And I thought a friend of mine that couldn't come with me because her son's ski racing obligations that weekend, and I had found, I think either I found you on Instagram or the ski retreat algorithm found me, and I saw the coinciding trip and was like, huh, this might be a cool opportunity to go take in the races, but also, have kind of like-minded people to socialize with and to, share lodging with while I was there for the races.
Yeah. And then were there any like obstacles, like where you were like, I don't know if I want to join something like this. Like, what if it's shitty? Or like, were there any mental, physical, financial, travel obstacles that
Yeah.
like you were dealing with?
I think anytime you're traveling solo to a place, it's always like, okay, how far away is the airport? Do I have to rent a car? Can I Uber? Kind of all of those logistical challenges. And then, the always, rent or bring your stuff scenario, with all that, shifting around. Do I want to be lugging all my luggage with me, or is it better to rent? I usually do bring my luggage with me, or my, definitely always skis and helmet, or I'm sorry, boots and helmet, but a lot of times skis because I do kind of love my equipment. And then I think too, the idea of staying in a house is always better to me when I travel, because it's nice to have a kitchen, even if you're just using it to make like coffee and toast in the morning, versus a hotel where you might be, downstairs in your PJs with people kind of walking through the lobby while you're getting a cup of coffee or whatever. So the accommodations themselves were attractive. I think I did have a bit of a little reserved on staying with a bunch of people I didn't know, because at that point I kind of signed up late because I was waiting for my friend. So at that point I was signing up for the group room situation, which I'm always worried about. Is somebody gonna, talk a lot or snore, or am I going to get up in the middle of the night and trip over someone, or what's the bathroom situation? I think we ask ourselves all these questions. But it just came down to just kind of taking a leap and being like, you know what? If this is terrible, it's 3 days. If it's awesome, it's 3 days. So decided to go for it.
Before that first Sun Valley trip, had you ever done anything like that before? Where you joined like a group solo?
Um, Not really. Like I had done a lot of trips. I had done trips by myself to different places, and then I would kind of put myself in a group ski lesson so I wasn't skiing alone. And obviously that has its, advantages and drawbacks, because you never know who you're going to kind of be put and end up skiing with. um I had done, and I had certainly gone on trips where but I had friends on those trips. So even though I wasn't rooming with somebody, I had, my friends there that I knew I could hang out with. So this was truly the first time that I went and just kind of immersed myself in a group of women, which I think is always a bit intimidating, because, just women, we have big personalities, we have different lifestyles, we have different, goals and priorities. And so I think I'm just always concerned with, am I gonna connect with somebody? Am I gonna fit in? Um, and just kind of those social concerns that I think we all have as women.
That's a big part of it. But with your experience, what was it when you arrived and then experienced it? Were you surprised or happy or like relieved or?
Yeah. Everybody was that first Sun Valley retreat. I think it was, now that I've been on 3 retreats, I think that first group was maybe the least cohesive, but still very cohesive, if that makes sense. Like, there were a lot of differing skill levels. We kind of had people of all ages. I was not the youngest, not the oldest. We had people from all over the country. In that first retreat, a lot of, if I felt any sort of trepidation, it was kind of my own fault because I had bought the ski race tickets and was, off watching the ski races on Saturday, when a lot of the group activities happened. So I kind of, I made the choice to not do the group activities. But I would say, I think we checked in Thursday night and skied with the group on Friday. And by the afternoon, I'd made a few people that I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I'm glad I'm with this group of women. There was a girl from New York there that I ended up skiing with and hanging out with. And then, of course, we all did the fondue, and that's always really fun to do at Sun Valley. And so by the night we had the chef, it was just a really fun group dinner and a really amazing experience.
Love it.
Yeah.
And okay, so tell me about like your decision to come back again and then again.
Sure.
Just tell me what you were thinking and why. And
so I was in a big transition last year because at kind of in the end of spring, middle of summer, I made a decision to move across country. So when I went on your first retreat, I lived in Georgia, and had lived in Georgia for 11 years, had been at the same job for 18 and a half, and just was burnt out and made the decision that I needed to move. And that's when I got the job here in Southern California. And the financial challenges of, while the employer helped me make the move, there was financial challenges involved with, I still had my condo in Atlanta that was kind of slow to sell because of a kind of slowdown in the market. I had incurred some moving expenses and just some, unexpected things when you move into a new space. And really thought I wasn't going to have the financial kind of flexibility to do much skiing other than driving to Mammoth this winter. And then I saw the trip to returning to Sun Valley, and I was like, oh man, that was really fun. I'd love to do that again and like really participate this time. Because like I said, last time I kind of took myself out with the ski racing and wasn't really a full participant. And so it was almost one of those like YOLO kind of situations when my condo went under contract, and certainly at that point it could have fallen out of contract, but I was like, you know what, let's just do this. I love skiing. It makes me happy. I really want to, this is something that I can give myself after all these months of like just feeling like a stranger in a strange land and dealing with, the financial challenges of having to rent and own and all of those things. And that was when I reached out actually about the Jackson Hole retreat, because I had never been to Jackson Hole. The girls group, my friend group that we do a trip with annually, has always avoided going to Jackson Hole because their perception is none of them are good enough skiers. Jackson Hole's this really difficult resort, and that's really all it offers. And I didn't want to go by myself because the perception that it was so difficult. So I reached out and you said, oh, the Jackson Hole retreat's full, but, I have spots for Sun Valley. And I was like, well, okay, I've been to Sun Valley, but I'll go back kind of thing. And I'm so glad I did because, and I think when I reached out, you told me like, oh, it's it's a different house. Like we're going to have a different chef experience. And I was like, okay, well, it's going to be different enough. It's worth trying. And I'm so glad I did because the house was very cool. I think it was better. Like both houses were amazing, but I think this year the house was better for our group. The women were unbelievable. I don't know how it kind of happened, but there wasn't the loud one. There wasn't the whiny one. There wasn't the, these personalities that I think sometimes make me nervous if I end up in a situation like that, on how to just kind of get along with everyone. And we just had the most dynamic group. I mean, we all skied together all week. I skied and snowboard. We had several snowboarders. And just, different different, kind of phases of life, kids at home, kids gone, never any kids, different, career backgrounds, different, just kind of general life situations. But everybody just got along fabulously and cheered each other on, and were really welcoming. And it was just, I felt like we got very, very lucky with that group. And it's funny living here in Southern California and just being here, not really having any friends. There's a woman, Mel, that was on that trip that I got to know. And we are now friends here in real life. And she also went to Jackson Hole. And we had lunch. We work strangely, coincidentally, in the same office park. So we've had lunch now. We have plans to go to Mammoth in a few weeks. So I really, truly made a friend locally on both of those trips, which was great. And then I'm keeping in touch with some of the other women.
Yeah, it's like, look, you were in it during that weekend, but then looking back, it's like, whoa, that was a lot, Yeah. Was there anything about any of the experiences that surprised you, delighted you, where you were like, oh, okay, that's cool?
I'm not a big picture taker. I'm not a selfie person. I'm not let's take this group photo. Let's try this Instagram trick I saw. I'm not that person. And you had brought a photographer to the experience, and I was fine hanging in the background. And then out on this beautiful deck before Fondue at Sun Valley, you were having our individual photos taken, and I was dreading it. But then I think at the end of my little photo shoot, you guys made me laugh. And there's this really fun picture of me and it's just, that when I look at that picture, I'm it's just joy. It was just at that point, you guys made me laugh. I was having a really fun time. I forgot the camera was there, and it's just kind of a neat picture of me laughing.
Such a good profile pic. Yeah. So good. You mentioned the word transition, and so a lot of women are many women who come on these trips are going through some sort of transition, whether it's ending a relationship, house caught on fire, kids now gone, divorce. Do you feel I guess, no leading questions, but does that relate to you, and does it make sense to you that women would come on something like this if they're going through some sort of transition?
I think so, because it's usually for most people a little step out of your comfort zone. And I say a little step because for some people it's a huge step because they've never done anything like it. But it's a comfortable because I know the experience, and I've done it 3 times now. I now think it's a baby step for people, in the grand scheme of things, because it might be a crazy large step for someone, but I think once they're willing to make the arrangements, hop into the environment, there is a comfort there. Because to your point, there's people with no kids, young kids, empty nesters. There's people, that are getting out of a marriage, or, one of the ladies on the more recent trip, she and her longtime boyfriend had broken up recently. And, people dealing with different phases of life, sick relatives, or, just challenges with work situations, because, I think we live in a very challenging time. And to be able, and you don't necessarily have the same experiences as everybody, but I think the value of being a listener in a lot of those situations, you can learn a lot, even if it's not your individual situation. And then if you can, I think being a listener is the most important. And if you can contribute, or, empathize with the situation, or provide your 2 cents if you've been through it, I think that's important. I think it's just very welcoming, because there doesn't need to be this cookie cutter experience of what your life has looked like. to be accepted, welcomed, comforted by the group. And that's really been my experience all three retreats. It doesn't, the composition of the group never looks the same.
And then your Super Bowl team was playing.
Yes, I have this kind of major league sports obsession with, I grew up in Massachusetts. And so I think I spent the first 30 years of my life in Massachusetts or Maine. And so I think when you grow up around Boston and New England sports, you just kind of get indoctrinated into fandom, if you will, and had been a huge Patriots lost the first 20 years of my life, and then they started winning and had won for 20 years. And then the last few years hadn't been that great, which I kind of took with we had our time, now's not a great time, but here we go. And then they ended up being so good last year. I never imagined in the world that we would have been in the Super Bowl. And so it was exciting because the weekend of Jackson Hole, my team was in the Super Bowl, and I had actually extended my trip by a night to stay Sunday night, even before knowing the Patriots were going to be in the Super Bowl, because I wanted to stay and watch it. I'm just a big football fan. And oddly enough, Mel and I were in the Jackson Hole, the retail store at the bottom, and I look across we were looking at, fun sweaters, and I look across the room and I lock eyes with a friend of mine I hadn't seen in a year since we were in Switzerland. And he yells, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "What are you doing here?" And so he and his wife and his grown daughters were there. And they ended up inviting me to their Super Bowl party. And then I skied with them and their instructor on Monday. So it was just a wild weekend of all sorts of emotions, amazing experiences, a heavy heart with losing my uncle that had been, really close. I had been really close to my whole life. But was just really lucky to have amazing people around me, kind of coincidentally. Yeah, when I think about that whole thing, it's a lot. Okay.
But, okay, a couple rapid fire questions. What's one word that you'd use to describe the ski retreat?
Fun.
What would you tell someone who's thinking about joining the ski retreat?
Come join in. You will have, as long as you come in with, a bit of an adventurous spirit and a willingness to participate, you're going to have a great time. Depending on, that might look like just enjoying the yoga and relaxing all weekend. It might look like going out and being social. You can make it your own experience in a lot of ways.
What's your ski alter ego name?
Bryce Kellogg.
Okay. Where should the ski retreat go next?
Ooh, I was thinking about this. I was in Telluride last weekend, and I love Telluride, and the town of Telluride is so cool. I don't know if we'd have any luck finding a house there, but I think Telluride would be amazing. Gosh, I think my girls' trip might be in Sun Valley next year, which is fun because I kind of conned the girls into it last weekend because we go a different place every year. And I'd really like to go back to Jackson Hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the above. Well, we'll be going back to Sun Valley and Jackson, so if you want
Nice.
to come along.
Nice.
I actually think I might also do Mammoth. Maybe.
Ooh, okay.
All right, so relating to International Women's Day, what would you say, what does women supporting women mean to you?
It's in the professional environments that I've worked in, all too often, and the professional environment I have worked in, they tend to be boys' clubs. And it's really disappointing to me when you see the women who are impactful in the organization, and instead of banding together, there's this tendency for them to cut each other down for some reason. And so when there are women, when you get in situations where women are encouraging, giving, support, just being there for someone, I think is so important, because it's a reminder that, kind of we need to be a girl gang, if you will. It's so important, especially I think in this day and age, to look out for one another, and kind of feeling like, you know, the empowerment to do that.
I guess touching on what you were saying, what does shift? You know, what's the big shift when there's collaboration over competition like that?
I think there's a chance to just do have such different experiences than if you're on a trip with friends that you've known forever, or if you're on a mixed gender trip with couples. There's you can kind of be like your best, most confident self, because you know the women are, you know, the group that you're with isn't judging you. They're not, you know, everybody's there to support and get to know one another and have a great time. And so I think there's this sense of, you know, collaboration and like creativity. When we did that cool tote bag art project in Sun Valley this year, everybody's was so different. Everybody was encouraging everybody else's, showing each other little pointers while we were carving out these stamps that we did. And it was fun because one side of my bag is like everybody's stamps, and it's just a really, I'm kind of droning on. I'm trying to think of how to sum it up. I just think that we can have such a better experience and go so much further supporting each other versus competing.
Boom. Anything else you want to add about your experience, about the retreat, about life?
I will say that I think that getting to know, being on, you know, kind of 3 of these experiences now, getting to know Charlotte and the programs that she puts together and the thoughtfulness behind them. You know, you're meeting cool women creators, women entrepreneurs. You're having, you know, chef driven dinners with women, you know, who are amazing in the culinary field. And just Charlotte's real thoughtfulness about, you know, making the, you know, bringing women in to those experiences to just kind of, you know, live what you're promoting, which is empowerment of women, I think is really special.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Cool. Okay.
All right.
11:05. We're on time.
Jump to next call. So you want me to just like just send it to you?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.